My name is Kim, grateful, recovering, compulsive overeater. I weigh and measure off the Gray Sheet food plan. I turn it into my sponsor every day. I eat exactly what I commit. I don't eat between meals, and abstinence is by far the most important thing in my life and the reason I am alive. And my abstinence date is September 22nd, 2014. And I really credit all of you with helping me to get here, because it's still, I don't know, it's just, there's still a part of me that it just seems so abstract. Like, I don't even know what that means unless I break it down or explain it to somebody. Like, and I've never even eaten in a restaurant unless it's my own. Like, oh my God, 8 years, every single day, someone else has known what I'm eating and I've stuck to it. And every meal has been made by me. Like, that's when, and been weighed and measured. Like, that's when it just becomes so, oh, no wonder I have to do this one day at a time. Like, if I thought about that, it's enormous. And I'm a fundraiser, so I'm at events all the time and just always at drinks and food. And anyway, I know a lot of you have heard my story, so I don't know what I'll speak about, but I think I want to talk about where I am now and then trace a little bit about where I was. I just finished this huge event that I was preparing for a year as a fundraiser. It was a big deal event, and it came off like beautifully, fantastically, like in terms of the fundraising, in terms of the program. I wish I didn't have to be such a wreck before these things happen, but you know, that's what it takes, what it takes. And I'm in this weird place where everybody's like, okay, do something nice for yourself. And I'm just thinking, I don't even know what that looks like, you know, playing a little bit of banjo, but like, my life is my teen in a way, or my job. Like, you know, maybe I'll take myself for a hike, but it's weird. Like, does it mean I'm mani-pedi? Like, no, really what I would love to do is go spend a week on a beach by myself. And like, that's not going to happen. So it's weird. I mean, I'm not that old, but I have a full life, or had a full history where I did a lot of stuff. It's not like I don't have interests, but it's weird. Like, that's what's happened with Abstinent, and except for going to like Berkeley Bowl and cooking and having yummy meals. Like, I don't know what that would mean. And it's strange. And I also want to say, we've just come out of the 10 days of awe, people that observe any kind of Judaistic practice. And it was very strange too. Like, I did not want to go, you know, I have my gray sheet God and like, or higher power, and that's what I live by. But there's also something about like the God and the days of awe, like, that I actually like fear, not like the white beard fear, but I just always feel the weight of the days of judgment. And it's like, I wanted to sleep through it, which was weird. Like, I just, it's almost like it's like being afraid of doing your fourth step or something. Like, that's exactly what it is. And I wound up pushing through and going, and it was very much like steps. Like, I had some really glaring insights about myself and my behaviors around work and preparing for this big event. And it's like, it's kind of like the steps, like, even though it exposes things and it's painful, you know that there's the next step, and you know that there's a purpose to it. So it's like, I really got to see this like dark side of my behavior. And I mean, not terrible, I didn't kill anybody, but like, you know, just ways of being that I don't want to be, but just knowing that by making amends, you know, I have these tools would help me out. So that's just where I am now. So a little bit of my story, as most people know, I didn't really recognize an eating disorder until I was 16, and I stopped eating, then was anorexic, then had my first binge, and kind of like that defined my life. I don't even know how I got a BA, 2 masters, like that pretty much defined my life, even within the context of a kind of OA abstinence when I finally got into OA after college. And even after I stopped going to OA, I was still eating 3 meals a day. Like, meals really did have a beginning, middle, and end, and I didn't eat between meals, and that lasted a really long time, even after I stopped going to meetings. But it was the thoughts were there and the amounts and the kind of loosely defined abstinence, like now just sounds insane to me. But I also realized that the disease and the recovery are both progressive. Like gray sheet wouldn't have worked for me then. Like weighing vegetables back then just would not have worked for me. I wouldn't have done it simply. So I was in OA, and then sorry, I'm just a little bit scattered. I was in OA. After college, somebody got me to my first OA meeting, and I just clung to it. Like, it just made so much sense. I felt like I walked in a Marxist, atheist, Freudian, and like left like this God-loving, abstinent person. Like, I was like, I'll take anything. I can't deal with the food. Like, I can't freaking deal with the food. I remember, and this has kind of come to light only recently, like I was in this abusive, like sometimes physically, relationship, the guy that actually brought me to my first OA meeting, because I was so freaking afraid to go home to the refrigerator. Like, I'd rather be battling with him all night in his little studio on the Upper East Side. Like, I just started remembering this, than like going downtown to the Village and being alone with my refrigerator. Like, it was that scary for me, and I knew being in a tense, fraught relationship would keep me skinny. Like, I'm not going to eat when I'm like so freaked out. So, like, in those subtle ways, like the food would define me. Just walking up and down like the avenues, looking at menus, like that was my life. Or just like lying in bed, fantasy, okay, once I lose this much weight, then I'm going to eat this. And it's just, the more that I think about it, and I think like only with these 8 years do I get such clarity. Like, I remember some of my bottoms, and I remember bottoming out on the substitute sugar and stuff, but just the torment of the food, always calling, always not being satisfying, always needing more, always concerned with how I look. Like, I heard somebody qualify last night, really, even though I don't come from big numbers, I certainly would have gotten there at some point, but just like waking up with this swelling in my hands. Like, that's what I've been remembering lately after a binge. The swelling in my hands, like the swelling in my face, it being midsummer, wearing turtlenecks, not being able to go outside, like having plans that I had to break. I couldn't even understand how people went out for dinner together. Like, I understood going out for dinner, but that's just like the precursor to going home and having a few more dinners. Like, wait, they're going to go home and do what? Like, watch a movie? Like, that's when you do your real eating. Like, it just defined me. I really don't know how I developed the English language. Like, the more that I think about it, like, it was really the food. And now it's the food, but in a completely different way. So then I moved to Israel. I mean, again, a lot of people know the story. I moved to Israel, and I started drinking after I got abstinent, and I stopped going to OA meetings. I started drinking a lot of wine. So that became a thing. I was totally a wino. And then only fine wines, of course. And then, and I remember also my choices of like boyfriends. Oh, he's going to be able to afford to take me to the 5-star, like, Japanese restaurant, so I can eat a lot and it's not a lot of calories. Like, that as being a way of thinking, like, it's mind-blowing. I mean, I think that's what this qualification is, like, just the realizations that come with, I don't know. And it's funny because now I've been like, my daughter's expanding her like palate, which is really nice for me. She's 14, it used to just be like crap that you would eat. I mean, not real crap, but like mixed water in. And like, I get excited to look through cookbooks, and it doesn't hit me the same way. I'm like, is this weird that I want to look through this cookbook or want to like go down this aisle to get stuff for her? And like, I'm being honest with myself, like, nothing, it hits me in like just this mom way. Like, oh my God, she would love this. Like, it doesn't make me salivate. It doesn't make me wish I could have, like, it's completely, I might as well be like sewing her a pillow or something. Like, it's just that distant and just that beautiful. And it took me till now, to like my 8th year, to get it. It's kind of good that she didn't want anything fancy before, because I wouldn't have been able to, like, I just could not handle cooking for someone else, I don't think. And again, not because of the smells or something, just like going through cookbooks, I don't even know what that would have been like. So I moved to Israel. I lived there for 10 years. And what got me to Israel is also just like defect of character after defect of character, I think, in a lot of ways, but it was holy. And so I had a kid there, and then I started some OA meetings in English, and then I found how, because after I gave birth, I was just,
you've got 5 more.
Thanks. I was just bottoming out on these like substitute sugar drinks from their like equivalent of Starbucks there. Like they were so good. And I just remember having like 5 in one car ride, and they were just a lot of shekels for those things. And I'm just like, I'll either kill myself or like have zero money when this is done. So I called somebody I knew was in How, and then I started How, and that was like, the angels sang. Like How was just such an amazing recovery. And and I also had this realization, a lot of people say when they've done How and then they put back in the carbs, that's when it calls. So it could have been that, it could have not been that. I'm starting to feel really like now, because I've been in GreySheet for 8 years, that really what didn't work about How was just eating with exception. That just changes everything. If you can eat with exception, that just changes everything. Then you're back to looking at the menus on the street, or I am. And that's it. You know what I mean? And I think I only recently, of course, I was going to eventually relapse and not be able to stay on How. Like whether it was the carbs, who knows? Like I wasn't a big carb binge eater, when I binged, like, yeah, I mean, obviously. So, but there's just not that recovery. And so when I came back here and I was really bottoming out on just, I was always a health food junkie. Like most of my binges are foods that actually were allowed. And I was just, but just amounts, and then the substitute sugars, I was just downing them like by the bucket full. And just for me, like it's not like that for everybody, but for me, like the substitute sugars, I would not have 8 years today if I was doing substitute sugars. Again, that's for me. But I bottomed out on that. And I was going to GreySheet meetings just because, they were convenient and nobody threw me out. Like it just never occurred to me that I would do GreySheet. It was just an OA meeting with like fancier people or something. And so that was it. And then I heard somebody qualify that they had bottomed out on the substitute sugars. And I asked her to be my sponsor. And since that day, I've had quite a few sponsors, but I always make it policy that I'm not going to have substitute sugars as part of my abstinent. Like if I pick up, it's day 1, because it is going to be day 1 anyway, like whether or not that's a week or 2 weeks, but it'll be a day 1. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot more to tell. We all have lives and blah, blah, blah. But, basically being in the food sucked. So that's all I really wanted to share. And eating 3 meals abstinently is not sucky. There can be sucky days, but like not because of the food or the swollen hands. So that's it. Thank you everybody for helping me get abstinent for 8 years. And I look forward to hearing what you all have to say.